thank you and we welcome you to the Mastermind call with the Dreammakers Network. Very, very excited to connect and share with folks this morning. It's truly a blessing to have these times to come together once a month for the purpose of personal development, which, unless you're just intentional and purposely focused on, goal setting all the time and connecting with networks, this isn't something that we all dive into on a regular basis. And so we're just thankful to have this opportunity to continue to come together to reconnect on this topic of personal development. And where do we go from here? How do we take what we have and take it to the next level? And even be in a position to practice, to go out, we be on the call, we have these conversations, we strategize, we touch on a host of topics, and then we get back out into our lives and practice, and be in a position to either whether you're practicing in your current rhythm of things that you do every day, back and forth to work and activities with family, and you're practicing personal development in that space. Or for some of you who are those who are really trying to take what you're doing to the next level and you practice on new things. And that in of itself is where it really gets interesting. But as long as we're practicing, we're practicing, how we manage in this life and how do we manage when the world has other decisions for you. The world is trying to take you into different realms. The world and society is trying to push you one way or another. And you are doing everything that you can. You're doing your best to accomplish the goals that you've set out, all the things that you've committed yourself to, and not allowing society and the world's, stuff to take you in a different direction. And so we're thankful to all of you who joined in. And for those of you on the call for the first time, this is Byron Deese here in Sanford, Florida. And excuse me. And we're, it's just a blessing again to have had these opportunities now with this call over 12 and a half years, probably more than that, actually, as we are diving pretty close to the summertime here in this first call in the month of May. And this is just truly exciting to, on a constant basis, be able to have these folks who have committed their lives to personal development, to growth, to outlining and trying to understand what's next for them. As long as there's still breath in your body, there's still something available to you. And I'm always curious to see what's dancing around in your head. We may not communicate it. We may not share it with other people, but I think for the purposes of this call, we've tried our best over the years to make this call a safe space for folks to communicate what actually is, what are you flirting around with in your mind and your spirit? What are you, curious about to the place where you're actually possibly willing to do something about it? That it's not just in your mind collecting dust, but it's something that you are about 2 seconds away from actually pursuing. That, I would say, for me personally, is a thrill for me to see that someone was able to hear something that we talked about, listen to some folks who shared their stories, and then that was just enough for them to say, you know what? Let me tell you about what I'm thinking about. Something that you're actually thinking a little bit about, that you really want to pursue. And if that happens, then now we're on to something. Now we can go from what Jim Rohn calls, that process of taking nothing into something. And You ever thought about it for a second? Just the times in your life when you have taken nothing, something that wasn't a thing, and created it, and now it is a thing. Like a lot of times we go through life and we do it, we're just doing it. And so we don't take time to even appreciate what just happened. This last week, this wasn't something, and today it is. Why is that the case? You know, why, what was it about this thing that was important enough to you to say, I'm going to interrupt my current life of things that I'm already busy doing. I'm already, got commitments up to the top, but I'm going to start this. I'm going to create this, whether it be a relationship, whether it be a new business, a new ministry, whether it be an idea that goes into something else. I think it's worth us, kind of stopping and thinking about that and what was happening to us to even say, I'm willing to add this to my already busy life. And for some people, though, it is a game changer. It's that thing that you've needed to go to really, in some cases, to even survive, because there are a lot of folks who the current life, the current day-to-day is not sustainable. That I can't continue doing this. If I do continue on this road, I may not last that long. So for some people, activating your ideas into reality is in some cases a survival mechanism, just to be in a good space in this life. But for others, it is kind of the spirit of transition, of having and scheduling, like, ongoing a series of these type of events that is just part of your makeup. We have folks who are what they call like serial entrepreneurs. And and I'll tell you, in this space of working with entrepreneurs and businesses and all that, these are some of the, and I don't want to use the term wealthy, because there are a lot of folks who are serial entrepreneurs, but they don't appropriately manage those businesses. So they can start a lot of businesses, but they don't exit them the right way. And so you could find yourself just, to the eyes of the consumer, just being a random businessman, a random businesswoman, who just have, I got this today, I got this tomorrow. But the ones who are strategic in their randomness, these are the folks who will start a business, get all excited about it, get everybody else excited about it, and have a number that they want to reach in terms of cash flow and organization, and sell it. And they have these ongoing strategic liquidity events that happen throughout their life. And they take that money and they go right into the next new business model, the next new business idea. And they run that for a couple of years, build it, grow it, cash flow it up, sell that one, and just keep going. And so it's good to be able to have access to folks who, in at least stories of people who may share a very similar trait as it relates to, what to do with the ideas, what to do with the ideas that you have, to put them to work, to put them into practice, and how to do it in a way that, one, satisfies your itch, to be creative and start new things and go into new markets and support, different efforts and create wealth, so it's that in of itself. And my brain is kind of on this topic a little bit because I'm going to a conference in the morning, an exit planning conference in Charlotte Harbor, Florida, like just south of Sarasota. And that's the whole objective. It's just a room full of creatives and people who are either looking for folks to help them in that serial entrepreneurial mindset, or looking for folks to help them figure out how to grow and sell their business, or it's just a host of advisors who are in that market. And that kind of creativity around how to monetize your creativity in a way that could lead to generational wealth. And so yeah, I mean, I think it's just it's a great thing it's a great exercise, if you will, to be intentional about your creativity. That's why, there are times when let me say it this way. I do like spending time and having good conversations with artists. And I don't care what kind of artist you are. Like, you could be a graphic artist, you could be a music artist. I mean, it doesn't matter. I do like spending time and having conversations with artists because the creativity just oozes, it just comes out of their skin, especially if they feel comfortable enough to talk to you and give you a bird's eye view into their mind and spirit. That is really exciting. And just to be able to see how they get to, especially when they're really good at whatever that they do. I remember a couple summers ago, I was sitting down with an artist, and we were having this conversation around, tell me about something that you would do that you just love to do it, period. Right. And everybody was going around the room and talking about their thing. And when we got to him, he pulled out a pencil, pulled out a pencil and went and got a piece of paper and started drawing. And it didn't take a long time. I mean, it was probably in 3 minutes. To this day, I still have this thing. It drew like this vase, like a flower vase, but it had all these designs on it that was reflective of the moment we were in the location and the people. So it had all of our names and some signatures and just all types of cool stuff. And I was just like, what in the world? And it was done so well, we could have walked into an art museum and stared at it for a couple minutes because it was at that level of quality. And it's just amazing to be around, folks who can quickly transfer a thought, an idea into something real, just like that. That piece of it. Now, I will say the flip side of that is, like I say, it's great to have great conversations and to tap into the mindset of an artist. The challenge from a business perspective is when you're trying to build a practical business, then you have to, you hope and pray that artist will either digest the information that it takes to build a cash flow producing business without spending too much money and all that jazz, or they will allow someone else who does know how to do it to run it and build it and grow it without much frustration. And I would say, in my experience, that's a difficult task. So because of the energy and the creative mind and the whole nine, the trial and error and make sure this is right, and all of that. But it is just a beautiful thing to be able to have those moments of trusting your thoughts, trusting your ideas enough, trusting you to be a good, supporter of your ideas, to take them from the mind and into reality. And that's something that I think is just a worthwhile practice that we should all commit to for yourself, for your own spirit and peace of mind. And I would say for your subconscious, because we have to remember that a lot of times the reason why our ideas collect dust in our mind is because we haven't basically told our subconscious that it's okay to allow me to do this, because our subconscious is a reflection of our behaviors and our normalcy as a protection mechanism. The things that we do ongoing and that we do in repetition, it has created what we now understand as normal. That's the safe space for you. And it will protect you from things that aren't normal. So if it's not currently in your life on a day-to-day basis and you trying new things, that is a threat to your subconscious mind. And the only way you can get over that is you get into a rhythm of doing the things, those ideas on an ongoing basis to prove to your subconscious that this is something that is okay for us to do. And don't strike fear into my spirit just because I'm trying something new, So I think it's worth that reminder, just for all of us as we are out here thinking about the things that matter to us, those ideas that are keeping us inspired in some ways, but fearful when it's time to act. It's worth us having these type of conversations, just as a reminder that it's okay to pursue something and carve out time for you, because that thing that you're excited about, that you may not know anybody in your current life who cares about that, who even remotely cares at all that this is something you want to pursue. This is something you want to spend time doing. You may not know one person, but I can say this confidently 1000% that if you begin the process of creating whatever it is in your mind, that it will attract the folks who also care about that. It will attract. I can tell you right now, I would say 90% of the people who are connected with this mastermind call, I did not know before we started it. 90% of them. So there's a small percentage of folks who I did know before we started this network, particularly this call, almost 13 years ago. But we started it, and when we started it, the universes align in very unique ways. And in the most random of ways, the universe said, this is your kinship. This is someone your vibration lines up. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world. When that happens, when the universe says this is your network, that's what it is. And so I'm thankful for just knowing that is universal law, and it happens regardless. Whatever you're vibrating is what is coming to you. An example of that. It was I could feel an argument creeping up. We were in the car, and I was like, "Oh my Lord, you know what?" And I got pulled into the argument. And before I know it, I saw it was a car in front of us, and they almost got into an accident. I said, "Absolutely not! I'm about to change this topic right now because the argument will create that that vibration, and that chaos vibration will show up in your house, in your car, while you're driving trying to get somewhere. So we have to be intentional about how we approach the things that we say, the things that we think, the way that we communicate and act. It's just, it is what it is. It's no, you don't even have to get too metaphysical about it. It's just, it is what it is. And we have to be very intentional as to how we approach these things. And so I'm thankful for you guys for being on this morning. Truly, truly appreciate just the vibration and the energy that you've given this morning. And we look forward to hearing from you on today's call. Well, as I said earlier, we are now effectively into the month of May. We have, gone through the month of April. We're staring at summertime, which is, we'll be heading into our 90-day goal setting challenge in a month, or less than a month now, and which is always exciting. With so much that can be created for those who are focused and committed. And I have some things, I hadn't even thought about this as I'm talking about it, but Lord knows I have some goals that are at the front of my brain that I need to really create some organization around to pursue. And so I'm kind of lining up what my ideas are and what I'm going to commit to for 90 days during the summer. And so I want to kind of preface that with all of you as you begin to start looking around your mind in your house or whatever the case and say, what am I getting ready to commit to take to another level? And I definitely want to kind of stir that up in your spirit as soon as we can, because man, there's this whole piece of, and we on this call, we're not afraid of the goal setting conversation and pursuing and growing and that objective. But there's just something about next level stuff, like the exponential. And, I just want to tell you, in this month of April, or this past month of April, whether it be in my prayers, in my dreams, in random conversations, and things that I've been pulled into, there's a level of growth that is being pressed upon me personally right now that I have never pursued. And I wanted to kind of have this type of conversation with you guys today, because it could be the case that it's happening to you too. And I haven't really, at this point of this network, I just wait to the call to start sharing these type of things. And I don't even talk about it with anybody else, because I know the vibration we're in when we come together. But there is a level of growth that is ready for and ready for me. I should say that. And the question is, am I ready for it? And I think it was worth us having this type of a conversation. That yes, I know we are, people who have committed to goal setting and growth and development. And, we study, practice what we preach and all of that stuff. But do you allow your mind to actually go to places that's beyond what you've seen? And I hope that makes some sense. Like it's something about, there are things that we know people who are doing well, kind of thing, right? So it's like, oh yeah, man, that's great. I see what she's doing. And I think I could do something on that level. So you have you're conscious of that there is a space that above what you're doing now that you would like to pursue. And we can be, and sometimes that helps us to identify the types of growth that we pursue, that we do put, especially if you're working for a corporation, you say, oh man, I think I can do that job. Let me do what I need to do and take it to the next level and get that kind of a job and that kind of thing. But what I'm actually trying to talk about and just kind of learn a little bit more from you guys. If you've ever allowed your mind to go past all of that, to go to places to think about what's possible beyond the people that you know, the people that you've communicated with, to go beyond all of that and tap into a space that is uniquely lined up with your current ideas, your current activities, but takes it to another place that is, it's the difference between, planting a tree and being in the Amazon rainforest. Like, it's the exponential aspect of your ideas. And I want to just allow our thoughts and energies to kind of line up in that type of a space for the purposes of this call and today's call, and especially as we're preparing to go into a 90-day goal setting challenge, that you allow yourself to go far beyond where you are right now and to at least, mentally and emotionally flirt with what's possible in that same lane. And and if you especially, and I purposely said your mind and your heart, because when you connect the mind and spirit on these things, you can look at your profession and say, for instance, I'm in financial services, so I could say, mentally, if I wanted to take my work to another level, not even another level, to the vast, like the extreme levels of the financial industry, I think about who's the most impactful financial advisor, if you will, in the country or the world. I would say if I had to pick somebody, it probably would be someone like Jamie Dimon, the president CEO of JP Morgan Chase. And that's one way to think about it from a mental perspective. But then when you add the spirit, that's what changes all of this, because you start thinking about, well, my industry is finance, but what is my spirit calling for? At the heart of hearts, what am I really trying to accomplish? And if I were to be, if I'm just kind of doing a self-inventory of what am I really trying to accomplish in finance, it's really how to end world poverty, right? So let's just connect those dots. How to end world poverty. But then the next question is, well, what is somebody like Jamie Dimon doing to end world poverty? And I would say the answer is probably not much. Maybe something, but not much. So now my current life is in this space. I'm mentally looking at what's the capacity in terms of growth exponentially. And then you start to connect your heart with what does that look like on a mass scale, and then meld those worlds together and see if there's what's possible. And I think it's worth that mental and emotional flirt. It's worth your brain going through that type of an exercise. It's good for you. And if you're daring enough to even remotely start something like that, it's good for the world. It's good for anybody who's willing to, or I should say, anyone who has access to what you're about to create. So I want to at least put that in your spirit. Because it could be the case that in your current world, on a day-to-day basis, you don't have access to other people who will allow or who even have these types of conversations. So that will so your mind only flirts with the conversations that you're having. Or maybe you can go back to something that you saw or a past call or something like that, and you can kind of think about that. But again, even for us, even for this network that focuses on personal development, I can't say that we have, maybe, and but I can't say we've had a lot of conversation and strategy on the exponential, that world bending type of goals, if you will. And whether it's something that you pursue or not, it is definitely worth your mind and spirit at least flirting with, just to say, well, if, like a what if, scenario. What if we did think about that? What if we did remotely approach something like that? What would that look like? And I'll tell you like this, and here's the real truth, to be a bit more practical, is when you begin a process like that, just to take your brain on something that is in the space of exponential growth of the mind and spirit, what really, in many ways, probably can be created is policy. Something that is of great need to the world, to the marketplace, to communities, to society. A lot of times, when it comes to public policy, this is something that's either a social need and we have to do it, or it's something that we know the corporations, the private sector, and maybe even the independent or nonprofit sector will not create for whatever reason. So as a government, we have to do this for a social good. And so I think it's important that even if this process that you go through, this experiment, even if it never becomes something that is a business or a cause or a ministry or whatever, that is never created by you, it can become, you could easily become a thought leader on the topic and take those thoughts and form it into public policy. So I wanted to just highlight that, because sometimes people say, Dees, that is just so far-fetching of an idea and thought process that there's no way I'd be able to start something like this. And the answer could be, you're right. But there is a way for it to become public policy, and taxpayer money creates something, because of the resources that are available. So I want to just kind of leave that in your thoughts and your spirit as we approach this 90-day goal setting challenge. Because I think it's a good thing for you to at least begin the process of outlining and ironing out, and at least let your brain and spirit go through that exercise and see what happens, and see what happens. Because again, it could be the case that in your current life, you don't have anyone that you know of that can partner with you in the development of it. But I am just so confident that you start down this road, you will find new people in your life. They will show up, and they will show up for the reasons associated with what you have now created, started. Even if it's in the very beta phase of just, hey, I actually talked about this in a workshop, or I talked about this with the client. And once it goes from mind to verbal and someone else hears it, it's over. The activities is now aligning. That's just universal law. That's just the way it works. So it was worth, I would say at the end of the day, it's worth the fact that we're having this type of interchange to communicate it and put it out there. And now we see what happens. We just see where does it go from here, from your ability to create from that. And so with that, I'll pause and take a second, open up the call now. One, to anybody who'd like to share just about April, the ebbs and flows of the month, the great that happens, the crazy that happened, the things that you just wish never happened. But just to communicate that, we'll take a second, open up the call now. And especially if you have thoughts or are even willing to tap dance around with this exponential growth opportunity. And even, and let's just say some of you may have even said, hey, I've either tried it, or I'm actually in the process of doing this now and want to maybe need some support or whatever the case. Let's talk it through. We'll take a second and open up the call now.
Hey everybody, this is Tyson. This was so perfect for me today, and I'm going to put in 2 seconds. So in 2003 or 2, I was in Kansas. I was working on a project for my master's program. It was about universal design. And I was really excited about it because the concept essentially is for learning, you create a lesson. Like a special educator goes in and has to go and make accommodations on the back half of it, right? Whereas if you create it on the front half with accessibility for all in mind, you create a completely different process. And so in the classroom, it looks like this thing is done. You don't have to go back and you don't need the IEP. You just oh, you're a kid. You need these 3 things differently. I'll do this for you. It's already, the modifications are pretty easy to do because it's already been planned for that. So I was kind of amped about it. And my mom was like, oh, that's a really cool idea. What if we did that in the garden? So she kind of started playing around with that in her head and what that would mean for her physical garden space. She had a community garden back then. And fast forward 3 years ago, back to 3 years past, she reached out to an organization that does all the gardening and the big garden projects in the city, like the landscaping of the city. And they were like, actually, we have some money from Christopher Reeve that he wants to give for a space that is accessible. And
did you say Christopher Reeve, like Superman?
Yeah, it's like Superman. Yes, right? I didn't know the whole story because my mom is not the best of giving stories and information. Bless her heart. I'm pulling things out of her on a regular basis. Y'all pray for me. So Christopher Reeve, yes, Superman, freaking Superman. Just giving money away, yada yada yada. So we go to the garden because I renovation, a garden. They tear everything up. They sit down and design. They've installed this product called Turkey Pave, which is essentially a soft pavement that's made from like recycled tires, plastics, and things, right? And so the thing with it is like, if you have a disability, you know, you're not trying to ride your scooter on some daggone dirt or mulch. You're actually clear pavement, like the stuff you have at a playground.
Mm-hmm.
So now this is our pavement throughout our pathways throughout this garden. Of course, I moved home 3 or 4 years ago. So I'm like, oh, shoot, let my God. My father passed away, so my mom has no interest in garden. And I'm like, we're not giving this garden to white people. Like, we're already just trying to neighborhood. They can't have this damn garden. So that's my only mission in life at this point, is to make sure that the others don't take our garden. And since then, I've just been really working to kind of stabilize it, put rules and regulations in order, take some gardening classes. Last year was my first year, like, fully gardening. And I really fell in love with it. So now I'm actually headed to our garden kickoff. We had a tornado on Tuesday. It's been raining every day since Tuesday.
Wow.
And today, the first half since it's not going to rain for like a 5-hour moment. And those are the 5 hours we're actually going to be at the garden. I'm headed there now from 9 to 12. We're supposed to be there. And from 9 to 11:30, it's not supposed to rain. So I'm just like, okay, God, you're really doing the best right now. And I really appreciate it. But with all that being said, is my love for special education is access for all. It was a seed that I planted for my mother at a time when she was fully mobile. In 2016, my mother lost the ability to walk. She was paralyzed her waist down. And so now, for the last 5 or 6 before she stopped working in the garden, she was in the garden, like with her walker, her rollator, in the dirt, in the mulch, whatever, because she was determined. But now she doesn't have to. And it's so cool because we have kids and adults in the community who have physical disabilities, and now they have this physical access to a gardening space. And it's super dope. That grant, the grant that I'm getting, I got this past year. I'm putting a communication board in this summer, and my background is autism, and so I'm really adamant about being able to communicate and making sure that kids can communicate. So being able to have this board, it's going to be my entree into training or early education teachers in this community. I'm not doing education at that time.
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to step back into my field and my joy through the garden because of the seed that I planted in 2003. You know what I mean? This is like, you don't know what conversations are going to take root. And now that we're having these conversations, it was easy for me to make a move into the city because people knew I was about accessibility. And so when you talked about, but I'm also planning on, I got friends in Pittsburgh. So as I'm putting this together, I'm thinking about how it's going to last on me. And so I think more times than not, we think we're going to do everything forever. And that's just not conceivable. It's not real. Because life happens, and people need to make changes. And you shouldn't feel bad about changes. So some people stay in things longer because they have not made it to succession layer as a part of their creation. And so coming into a space with a succession plan in mind helps you plan and duplicate and think about processes more so than just creating the thing. You have to create the thing with something in mind that you're not going to be there to see it to the end.
That's
real. That's what I'm going to say. Super good. Thank you so much, and thank you all for letting me share that.
Listen, I'm gonna tell you right now. The way you ended this conversation is how these things come to life, and because it's more than just an itch that you're trying to scratch. Because when you threw in there, you talked about the longevity process, that you build something, you start something with the end in mind. And when you start something with the end in mind, you build it for longevity. And the thing about somebody like you, who over the past 30 years have touched different markets, so you can create something like this in your local market. Let the impact prove itself, build something special where you are, and then take it to those markets where you have been in the past as a proven concept and implement it in those other areas, which will begin, kind of that mass domino effect, if you will, where sometimes we're in places throughout our life, and at that time we're like, why was I ever here? It was like I was here and this was a weird place to be, and I didn't have the best experience when I was there, whatever the case may be. But you were there and you created relationships, or you were there and you understood the market, and whatever the case may be, and you left. And then 20 years later, you say, you know what? I remember this was in XYZ location, or that person who was then knucklehead is now the head of research and development at this thing, and the connection is there to expand an opportunity, from where you are to where, where you're taking it, so that whole piece of building something that has the right type of processes is, and I'm gonna just tell you something else. Especially when it's a nonprofit. Well, I shouldn't even say that. And I'll say it this way: for-profit efforts in businesses should have some type of profit component, and nonprofit efforts should have some type of for-profit component. And both reasons is focused on longevity and impact. So if you are a nonprofit that is predominantly building a program that's specific to children, or to your point, special need efforts in K-12, right? That's a nonprofit or governmental program. But then you say, okay, well, great. And I recognize that. And so we're getting grants from nonprofit organizations and from the government and things like that. How do we add in a for-profit resource that will also serve as a revenue stream for this effort? And a lot of times folks say, well, I don't even know, like, we're focused on the work. Well, okay, well, what relative to the work can be a for-profit model? And a lot of times, it's probably the easier points is just kind of what would be a quote unquote wraparound service to this cause. And, so if it's, what are the supplies that we need just to do what we are doing? And if it's gardening, or what supplies do we need, and who are we buying these supplies from? And you say, well, we're buying it from Lowe's or wherever the case. All right, great. How can we create a for-profit that partners with, Lowe's, and we buy from the for-profit, or whatever the case, so just start thinking about the 1-2 punch that adds to the longevity process model that will keep an effort like this funded for a long time, and you continue to attract. And I'll tell you the other part to this is that, and that's just looking at it from a nonprofit ad and a for-profit. But when you're communicating to funders and and other folks who are involved, that there has been thought into this as to how to create within the business model for the organization its own self-sustaining mechanism, that attracts a whole new world of investors and supporters, which they may say, well, you know what, hey, I don't have a lot of charitable dollars to support, but I can help add some capital for the for-profit business model that you have to keep it with the type of support that it needs to stay alive to help you continue to further do the work. So I think that is the beginning of how we have to think about exponential growth on something that is a combination of the heart and the mind, and that has a passion point, for you. And if passion is in there some type of way, and you connect heart, mind, and nonprofit, for-profit, that's a recipe for success. That's just no getting around it. And the truth is, every time you talk about these things, I start thinking about either current organizations that I'm involved in or old clients who I know would be in that market space. So we need to act. Let's table this and make this a point of conversation in the vineyard. so we can really connect the dots on this, because this is definitely, there's a lot of legs to take this to a whole nother level. So I love it.
Looking forward to it.
I love it. I love it. All right, this is what we're talking about. Let's do this. Anybody else? Let's open up the call. Anybody willing to even dare communicate, just like Dr. Jones did, on this is what I've been thinking, and I got a little bit of practice on it, but here's where we are. I so want to hear this. Let's take a second and open up the call now to see who's willing to share on this topic. We'll open up the call now. And I'll say to the folks also online, hey, number one, you can call in and jump in on the conversation. But feel free to, if you're already working on something, pop it in the comment section, put a link there so we can click and just kind of learn more about what you're working on. That will give us a bird's eye view into what you've already started, and you're working to expand it, add that exponential growth factor to it. Because this is, again, the exercise necessary to activate all of the universal law factors that now exposes what you're doing for the purpose of connecting with others who they may. The truth is, it's interesting when they say looking for something. That looking could just be mental, mind and spirit, not verbal yet. But even thinking about something creates a vibration. And that vibration goes out and goes to work and does what the universe does. And so I want to, I'm trying to be specific about intentionality and what happens with intentionality. When that starts, it's on the way, And so, and I'm saying that because I know a lot of times there's a lot of nervousness. And I use the word nervous, but it's really excitement, and you're trying to figure out, it's energy at the end of the day, and you're just trying to figure out what to do with that energy. Some people, I'll give you a quick example. Yesterday, my daughter was getting ready for tryouts, for high school dance tryouts. And let's just put this into perspective, right? We all remember when we were kids. And in her case, she started dancing when she was like 3 or 4 years old. And from her perspective, all of that training and time spent in dance, it leads up to this moment in high school, or preparing for high school dance team kind of thing. So in her young world, this was the Super Bowl of tryouts, if you will. And, we're in the car headed there, and it was just pure, lots of energy. Let's say it that way, that she interpreted as nervousness. And I told her, I said, that this is what you need to do well. It's the energy that's there that you can transform into whatever you want. You can transfer that energy right into a spectacular performance, or you could also transfer it into rage and anger and blow the whole thing up, right? So, so I highlight that because I'm confident whatever's in your mind and spirit is something that is truly meaningful to you. And when you think about it, it creates energy. And for some people, that energy could lead to the conscious mind saying to you, you've never done anything like this. Stop thinking about it. Get back to work. You don't know what you're doing. Do not listen to that Dees boy. You need to get back to work and go back to what you know how to do and stop listening to them calls and all of that, right? But the truth is, it's just energy. It's just energy that you can put to work, and put to work on behalf of the things that you truly want. And so let's open up the call. Anybody have any questions, comments, or would like to kind of flirt around, if you will, on this topic of exponential growth? We'll open up the call now. My brother, how you feeling, man?
Feeling good, man. Feeling good.
Yeah.
I'm in the house right now, so I'm keeping everything low key.
Okay.
To wake everybody up.
Okay.
But,
wake them up.
I can't. No, man. And they had a hard night. Hard Friday. I'm just although the brain was percolated because you had a lot from the beginning to when you opened it up, a lot of stuff, a lot of thought. But specifically about what you're talking about now, before I give one of the examples, I want to go back to Castan's example, and I just point out a few things. One was to just bring it back to a very base level. Sanders, the way she described it and her energy that she just spewed into the conversation was there you go. It was palpable. The energy, like the fact that what was happening, you know what I'm saying? And it was amazing, and it was on top of what you were talking about, and her insight as to, time frame, how long it went and all that was there. But the way she was describing it, I could feel the passion and the lining up of all the things, but the energy was in it that she was talking about. Which to me was very, very powerful. When I first heard her speak, you listen to people, and she's already a high energy person. So it's not like, she's normally monotone and no, she's high energy, right? But so I'm listening, I'm like, okay, Castan's fired up. Maybe she got that extra strong chai tea in her right now. It was a little more.
Yeah.
And she discussing it. And it was the rapidity of it and the tone of it, of the actual description. you could sense, you could sense or feel that this was in line with her passion and her desire.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And I wanted to point out, I think you know, but for myself when I heard it, and then everybody that's listening, that there's ways to recognize when you're on the right path. Same way you would just the example that you know, you're talking about Maddie, and her nervous energy, or her you know, that potential excitement that she had. There's ways to recognize when you flip the switch from, you know, okay, I'm on the right path with this one. This one is good, because you get into that state that I could hear that she was in. She was talking about it, and the fact of what it was, and the description of, you know, God, you know, a tornado and all that. So we got X number of hours to get over here, take it to the dirt. I'm on my way, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that, you feel that there. So that's super strong. And I don't like to let that kind of stuff go by, because when you're in the presence of it, you know, you just take it in, you know, you drink it in, you know what I'm saying? Because it is transferable, but it's also a way to recognize that you might be, you know what I'm saying, on that path. The same way you can drink in and take in the BS when somebody, you know, you get to a conversation with somebody and they're, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, that was easy to but you can still, you know, take it in. The other one is more rare. In my case, you know, in most people's cases, to hear somebody or be in the midst of somebody that's like on it, passionate, and it's just, you know, unique to them. And that's a powerful thing. So I just wanted to, you know what I'm saying, acknowledge that. And I was, okay, we all want this point. We all want this point. So I need that on song. I need that. So, my example of exponential things that are occurring just because you've been thinking about them. And it's not so many, not like I'm Mr. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm to say, I'm Mr. Manifestation. You know, these things happen with me all the time.
Yeah.
And there's so many examples.
A plethora of these things.
I know this is a plethora of manifestation. I'm currently manifesting as we speak. But what I'm saying is like, we all get these things that are like coming at us all the time, you know, and they are, I think they're reflections of, like you're saying, those thoughts that you put out, and these are the opportunities to have those thoughts, you know, grow if it's something you want to go with. So, and if you're aware of them, you see them, and you make decisions, and then, like you said, you know, sometimes the subconscious, your conscious mind just says, you get scared, you make up excuses why I won't go, and then, you know, it just gets laid to the side and you move on. So, or you put something out there that you think, that's why conversations like these are good. You put something out there that you think is the direction you want to go in, and then, you know, something comes back, and you realize, like, oh, okay, yeah, no, that was the wrong vibration. That wasn't, and you know how they intentional, you know, people that are on it, they're intentional. You know,
Yeah.
intention, that's that Oprah word. I move with intention. Every meeting I start off with intention. Intention. So, like, sometimes when you just, you know, put it out there without the intention or without a conversation like this, then, you know, it'll come back like, you know, universe is like, God is like, oh, okay, you want that here? Try some of that. You're like, oh, no, I didn't mean that.
Yeah.
That was incorrect. It's nice, but maybe not. Or maybe it's terrible, and please don't give that to me again. Either way, you know, but there are examples where, like, stuff is constantly mulling around in your mind, and you know, it comes to you like, wow, that was something. And so, an example of that, I would say, that's occurred fairly recently is so I'm a Baltimore native, and, you know, currently live within the city limits. So in all my travels, I see what a lot of people see, which is there's a lot of vacant houses.
Yeah.
And it's ongoing, issue in all major cities and all that kind of stuff. And even Kyle was talking about how they can gentrify her neighborhood. She's not going to let them gentrify her dog. I was like, that's right, sister. Don't let them come in there. Saying it. Yeah. But anyway, so I always do these things, and having this architectural background, and just being involved in the landscape of the city. I see these issues, and I'm like, wow, that's terrible. Maybe adjustments could be made there, but it is a huge, undertaking. But the city has issued this thing. They've been issuing it for a while, but recently they ramped it back up to 13,000 vacant properties in the city row homes and some other multi-unit properties that's renovated. And they got the money from wherever, and they want to help people renovate it. So I've seen that thing pop up times, and I'm like, wow, that's a good idea, man. Okay, man, that'd be great if somebody did that. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I see plenty of places where that would work, man. I see all these kind of blocks that are great, but then out of the blue, or out of the intention. Phone calls, a couple phone calls come in. First phone call is, I had a cousin in Georgia that was out of the blue. Oh, hey, I just wanted to, we just shut down this, this other business that we're doing, and her and her husband, have this income and this disposable money. We need to invest it, and we want to come to you. I'm like, oh, oh, real. What? I got some people you probably want to come to before you come to me. No.
You.
This is what we want. We you. Because we know that you are in there. We want to invest and start transforming these properties and invest in real estate, right?
Mm-hmm.
I said, wow, okay. Let's form this company. And she had a full, it was a full-blown presentation. First of all, you never know, what people are thinking of you. We were just down there for a retirement party and all that, doing the fan dance. I was, and whatever else.
The fan line dance.
Come on, man. No conversation about, drink, line dance.
Yep.
But so I took that. I was like, wow. I was humbled that she was even, calling me. We need to talk. Okay, all right, well, let's talk. So we had the conversation, pitch goes. I said, that sounds amazing. I think, wow, all right, let's start. Shut it down, keep it moving. Yeah, we'll let this ride because I don't know what she's talking about. But I'm pressing buttons and then see. Put it on the background. Still riding around. And then I still with this thoughts about these things, these properties and all that, and the city, just being there. And then I get another call. Thank you to our current president. That was strange. Yeah, and it's just gonna shake up the conversation. But thank you. I'm gonna tell you why. Having friends and colleagues who are high level current federal employees. Yeah. Have reinvigorated their desire for entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
So they call me like, hey man, I had this idea, man. Maybe, I think we can get all this financing. But what's going on with those properties in the city that they advertise? I said, okay, all right, baby, it's another. Yeah, let's get on a call, man. So me and two high-ranking government officials, guys that are like maybe not the guys that are on the news talking, but like the dudes that are behind the dudes that's on the news. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, he's right there, right? We got to get out. But here's what we're going to do. We can do a minimum of 200 properties. I said, okay.
Minimum.
We're gonna get you. We got you because you're the guy there. I'm like, okay.
Love it.
Let's go. So I start, putting in phone calls and just, shaking up the tree. And, there's traction on it. And, proposals will come in and that kind of thing. So we'll see how here's your 90 days, see how it goes. But one of the things that I had always put out there in reference to, doing combating to development in the city was like, I just didn't want to nickel and dime myself.
Okay.
I'm already, Mr. Toolbox and all that. I just didn't have this. It just wasn't in my desire to, get hands-on inside the property in that way, like I used to. And, me riding around in a pickup truck with a guy who's got a substance abuse problem, you know what I'm saying? And we're busy, hanging drywall at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, exactly.
Not with that. Not with that.
Not no more.
Not before. Having done that,
yeah,
allows me to know, what is happening, and I'm, knowledgeable with all the stuff. But it didn't excite me.
Yeah.
So, these levels, I've understood is going into it has to be at a high level. So, that's just the first example that came to mind. We're still in the preliminary stages, and paperwork is being signed and all that. But it's just a thing that I was like, as you were talking about, something that you might be passionate about, and and the exponential piece, meaning that when I had properties, it was one, 2, 3, one at a time, 2 at a time, 3 at a time, kind of deal. But I always thought, I could get this thing, bigger, and that exponential piece, and then to make a real impact, not only in the city, but also, in my pockets, and then
that's right.
And the legacy of being able, rename streets and all. I always have those conversations.
There we go.
Where you think things like, oh man, hey, what was the I can't remember what the example was. I was just talking about it. There's certain things you think is an object, but really it's just somebody's last name.
Yeah, that's right.
Just some dude's last name that you're like. I mean, I guess for all purposes, you can say Disney. It's Disney Channel. My kids download Disney Plus. It's just a term, Disney. No, it's just some dude's last name. Like he had a brother. He had, He had a father.
Yeah.
Came up. They were just drawing. Like being in that mode where you can start to readjust, rename streets, and design things the way you want it to be, and leave your legacy there. It's on that exponential side. So just something that it's an example, but interesting, very interesting, sir. I can go on and on about people, but I'm gonna leave it there because on the strength of Tarzan and her energy.
Yeah.
Just leave it there. There you go.
Well, I'm gonna tell you like this, man. We got everything that we need. Like, what happened was, as I started flirting around with exponential growth and just really started, and so then it went from a flirt to let's try some stuff. And as you start to mentally operationalize your exponential growth process, to Tysana's point, is then you start thinking about what do you currently have access to that could help operationalize this, to go from idea to practice to something for real, right? And I say that we have everything that we need. We have everything that we need, definitely, to not make excuses. To at least say we tried this. We have a network of people in different backgrounds who, and it's worth talking about the network and what we mean by network. People who are willing to speak on your behalf. I mean, think about it. We know people. We know a lot of people. But are they willing to speak on our behalf? essentially a network is like your own, people who are part of your business already. If I said today, if I dedicated this whole call today and said, I need you guys to, while we're talking, send a text message to, 5 people and tell them to go to, engage-wealth.com and schedule a meeting with Byron Deese to talk about financial management. All you guys would probably do it. Why? Because you're part of the network. And you already, and I'm talking about something that that I do. Now, if I said, hey, I need you guys to text 5 people right now and tell them to go to my website because I'm now, a new chef. And I'm training people. I can actually cook food. And he's like, this is my God. I don't think I've ever had any of his food before. Or, I'm now a new personal trainer, right? And I'm like, wait, these kind of heavy, right? What's going on? I'm not you asking questions, right? He's like, that's my guy, but I'm still asking questions. But if it's something that that you're already involved in, you're gonna say, no, I got a solid group of people who I know will help do this. So that's number 1. You have a network. Number 2, though, within that network, you have people who can pick up the phone or get you access to things that can help with the operations, whether it be capital, whether it be, somebody who's in a, elected office somewhere who can help with policy, whether it be all the operational things you would need to at least get going. We also got facilities, we can host something, at space, and we could call Paz and reserve a day to come and host it there, or all these different pieces that we have. A lot of times we forget, or maybe we don't even know that we have that kind of access, but we got it. So that should lower, or at least allow your energy, that part of your energy that was still nervous, to begin to reallocate that energy into excitement. So just that transference, because the things that were making it nervous for you was basically the unknown. I don't have this, and I don't know how I'm going to do that, and and all these I don'ts and worry and all that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff will take you out of it. You're like, matter of fact, I'm not doing this. Like, get back to work kind of thing. But we have a lot of those things that can help reduce. We talk about on this call as early as almost 13 years, but we have to think about that for a second. That's 13 years of building relationships, of networking, of trust building. So those opportunities and those things that you think you may not have, you actually do have. So that's number 1. I would say the other part to this is that when you start diving deeper into why this is even something you want to do, why is this even important? And I think it's just so meaningful to have that 1-2 punch of for-profit, nonprofit, meaning a profit and passion. You know what I'm saying? To have that 1-2 punch in your arsenal, ready to roll, ready to go. Because when things get difficult on the for-profit side, and you run into them no's and those setbacks and people trying to scheme against you and all that kind of jazz, you can lean back to the passion and remind yourself of why you're doing this, why this is important. I mean, just like when Paz highlighted the fact that, people called him because they recognize that his vibration is exactly what they need to further their ideas. And being in a space where, you got folks all the way from Georgia calling, but then you also have so many people who are spooked and frustrated with the uncertainty of their current role, who are working the government, to say, I need to do something else. And I was just having this conversation with potential client the other day, and this is particularly as it relates to the Black middle class and the role the government plays in expanding the Black middle class. When you think about the combination of the government jobs that have created about a solid 3 generations up to this point, even more in some cases, of cash flow and wealth and assets because they worked for the government, or if you want to take up another notch, because they contracted with the government. They really got a lot of Black millionaires were created because they contract with the government and through their own business model. So when the government then it becomes not an asset to your growth, but a liability, because we're going to take your jobs and we're going to stop contracting with the Black folks, and because of DEI and all that jazz, then you have to take a step back and say, okay, what is our new source of economic development? How will we produce jobs? Who are our strategic partners in cash flow for communities? So entrepreneurship and strategic alignment and strategic partnership has to become I would say, a primary focus, particularly for the Black community, to not only sustain itself, but to focus on exponential growth and thriving in times like this. So, never let a crisis go to waste. And there are a lot of folks who are going through that process right now, trying to figure out, who can I trust to help me navigate this? Who can I trust to help me do exactly to help me address my economic concerns around cash flow and the lifestyle that I'm providing for my family now? Who can help me do it? And they're starting to point to people who they believe in and trust, who can help navigate those worlds. And I'll tell you right now, we are it. And we definitely, because we have those ideas, we've been working, we've been practicing, we've been in our spaces, coming back to this network, going back into the space, coming back to this network, going back. And so we should welcome the opportunity for exponential growth. I would say anybody who's in that idea phase right now, currently, or you're having a conversation with somebody and they're just like, man, I got to figure this thing out. Like, you get that kind of energy from anybody you see, tell them to go to dreammakersnetwork.org. You go there first and just click around. You'll see the resources are on that website from our partners, in different capacities, from the things we've done. There's years worth of these type of calls all on the site, that for somebody just still kind of trying to think, and they just click around and click on one of those videos and boom, the idea, something that we've already talked about, somebody who spoke about what they do and how they connect, that's on there. So for people who are just in that early, man, I know we got to figure something out, right? Tell them to go to the website, dreammakersnetwork.org. And it's, because ongoing, we're uploading and adding new content and resources, new partnerships every week. So it's like we have a lot of what folks need to begin this road. And that's a blessing. You know, there were times we all of us on here right now can say there were times that we did not have that. And we do now. And so it's growing, and it's growing at a fast clip. You know, and so, and I want to just kind of highlight the fact that now is the time. There's no time better than now. You know, over the past month, and I've just, when it comes to the books and the resources, you know, I'm still actively trying to finish The Black Cabinet, which is just and I've been mixing up a couple books, but I keep going back to The Black Cabinet because I'm getting close to finishing it up. The Black Cabinet by Jill Watts. And you know, the good thing about this book is so timely because there are a lot of folks right now who, especially Black folks, who think this is the worst time for Black people. And I'm just like, this isn't almost close to the worst time for Black people. Like, it's not even maybe the worst time of your lifetime, you know, and maybe, and from your perspective, right, you know, it's being marketed that way. The threat, you know, and all that jazz. But this is why history is so important, and we have to be very careful, you know, because when we start talking about history, there's some things that's not taught in schools that happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are, like, I mean, you have to get into the books to learn it, because the truth is, a lot of times our grandparents and you know, great grandparents, they when they finished that period of time, they didn't want to talk about it. That's one thing about in the Black community in particular. It's like we don't talk about that. And there's a lot of stuff that hey, like if some kid, you know, heard about something, and then they came to the family meeting or whatever, you know, after church or something, they asked a question, they say, don't ask that question. And that's been passed down in our communities for so long. So if you don't learn it at home, unfortunately, if you don't read, here's what's happening. Either you don't learn it at home, you didn't open the book, so you're not getting it in there. Then you got two things. Either one, because you never heard about it, it's not real. It's not a fact because you've never heard of it. You only think that things that happen that you know about happened are the things that are actually real. That's number one. Or unfortunately, you learn information from somebody else who's giving you a different story. You know, giving you their version of the story, right? And when the truth comes out, then you don't even believe the truth, and you're questioning the author and all that jazz, right? So it's so important, as for those of us who have kids and grandkids, to communicate, to surround these folks with the information and to talk about it. The Black Cabinet, this book, I guess I'll show for folks who are watching. This book is really a very timely example of right now, you know, where this is a period of time before World War II, when, as we knew about, like FDR, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was preparing for, had actually gotten elected into a third term, which is something that we hear talked about a lot right now with our current president, they're already gearing up to bypass Constitution and have his supporters draft him in. So constitutionally, a party can't run an office, a president for a third term, but the people can draft that person in at the convention and say, we want this person. And that's what they're already organizing to do. And for the 2028. And so, there it is. It's happening in FDR's case. He was drafted in twice, primarily because of the war, and ended up serving 4 terms, being elected into office 4 times. The question is, what was happening? How did it happen? What was the reasons behind it? Can history repeat itself? And then on top of that, I would say this Black cabinet and their focus was really on how to advance the plight of Black people in a country that was preparing for war, to fight against a lot of the same injustices that were happening in this country. So we're getting ready to get together and go fight a war, but y'all beefing about, should we integrate the military? Are Black people, intelligent enough to fly a plane? So it's interesting to hear. So we know about, quote unquote, like the Tuskegee Airmen, but the precursor to that, the conversations, the advocates, the people who were sacrificing, some of them died in the process of advocating for the equality of Black people, the excellence of Black people, died in the process of trying to push for these bills. Heart attacks right there in the middle of a meeting, while they were in the process of advocating to prove to the country and the legislators that Black people are just as capable as anybody else to do anything that y'all are doing. So, and the level of systematic, right? I mean, literally, you could have HDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, issue a policy from the New Deal in one conversation, and it's all going out to the states and the communities with new money for workers, for jobs and all that. But by the time the money and the resources actually got to the towns and the cities, the people who were in charge of distributing that money said, oh yeah, that wasn't no money in there for you, when there actually was. And then when the Black folks came back to the White House to say, hey, listen, you issued money for us, we're not getting, our workers are not getting this money. So there's slave happening right now. These people are showing up to work and not getting paid, or getting paid 10 cents on the dollar when you issued $1 in the grant. So somebody's milking it and nickel and diming the workers. Like, that kind of racism it's that we're not taught. That you can't go in the classroom and hear that, right? And even in the case of, even now, like they're attacking the colleges because they're having these types of historical conversations. I just read yesterday that the administration is looking to revoke the tax-exempt status of Harvard. Meanwhile, the same day, the president is the commencement speaker at University of Alabama. So, doubling down on one ideology and a complete threat to another. So the timing of these types of historical pieces is very real. It's important for us to approach the information, have some type of resource where we're taking in this information together, and with intention, at a real pace. But I think the part that I enjoy the most from that book are the real work of the people. Those folks you've probably never heard their names before, because they weren't, Dr. King. And these people were 20 years before we heard the name Martin Luther King. So those unsung heroes who their entire professional life was dedicated and committed to the progress and the plight of Black Americans. And it's important not only for us to know that information, but for us to feel like after you read the book and books like that, there should be some level of pass me the baton type of experience that should happen, where you feel as if this was work that was done and a lane that was paved. We need to pick up the baton and keep this thing rolling in a way that will make sure that, especially with so much being at stake as it relates to the plight of Black folks, that our kids and grandkids not only will be able to also connect with these folks who passed away 100 years before they were even born, but the day-to-day societal factors that we are able to tap into it and understand it and give historical context to people who never heard these stories. And you can speak about it in a way that's not myth, because a lot of times we get caught up in passion. I get a little frustrated sometimes when I see our current legislators, especially Black legislators, who are very, they're loud in what they're saying, but it's not backed by historical context. So you look and you sound like you're advocating for the people, but realistically, you're getting clicks on your social media page and not really doing the work, and more importantly, not influencing your people and others around the plight of not just Black folks, but the plight of folks who are being attacked and the voiceless. So that's one piece. It's a great book, The Black Cabinet, by Jill Watts. I'll tell you something else. Here's another story. I was having a conversation with a brother a couple of weeks ago who went to Tuskegee in the 60s. And we're talking and he's telling me his story. And as I'm listening to him, I'm thinking about a book that I read. And I said, we literally sit there talking, and I just pulled right back here in my library and looked around and found the book, started reading pages of the book, people he knew, and was like, oh man, yeah, I know her because that was in my class and stuff. Then I came across an actual picture of the brother in the book. He said, what in the world? I took a picture of it and sent it to him. Said, this is unbelievable. And that exchange just led to more opportunities that have been created since then. And I say all that to say, when we're out here dead serious about what we're passionate about, and a lot of times you do things and you read stuff and you dive into areas that aren't really pertinent at the time, right, to anything that you have going on. It's just amazing how once something is in you, it's there. And we'll be ready when those opportunities show itself. And you can just have, you can share what you know and understand, and that you are a serious person on the topic. That part is so important as we think about the things that you care about, the things that you have committed yourself to, the things that you are thinking about committing yourself to. We're just in a unique time where we need serious people, and we need people who are serious about the topics that they care about. that you're not just a surface dweller, if you will, just kind of, I know a little bit about some stuff that I can talk about in an elevator. But we need folks who have said, in this life, I'm going to commit myself to this type of work. And here's why. This is the work that I've decided that I'm going to align my life's purpose with. And I'm going to be with somebody who is up depth in the topic. So when someone says, man, we're thinking about, whoa, man, let me call her. I know she's on this, or she may even lead us into somebody who does know. Like we were talking about with Tysana. Over the years that I've known Tysana, I've known her to be someone who was very knowledgeable, educated and connected in the space of working and providing services and the topics around people with disabilities. That has been the ongoing theme about the work that she's done over the years and still doing. We need to be able to stand tall and be confident on the things that we have aligned ourselves with, our passions, and don't shy away from it. Figure out ways to even double down on it, because we're just living in a time where we need serious people, especially when there are so many people who aren't serious. I mean, you type, you click on IG, you go to Facebook or whatever, you just turn on the news. There are a host. The majority of the folks are just in search of a good time 24/7. Good time, good time, good time. Let's just go get as much of a good time as we can and be as, one thing we're serious about is having a good time, right? And hey, that's cool. Go for it. But for the purposes of this call, where we're really trying to line up with folks who are serious about the plight of their life, the growth and personal development and the goals that you've set, it's worth being serious about the things that matter to you and letting it be known that that is something that is of great importance to you. And that when someone asks you a question about a topic that you've communicated is your thing, that they're going to walk away with insight. They're going to walk away with something they're going to think about for a while. And they can't wait till the next time they talk to you, because they know you have committed yourself to this work. Whatever that work is, whatever the work is, we're just at that point in time where we're truly in need of committed, serious people to address very, very serious matters, particularly when we look at our leadership and what's being projected as the way to go about being a leader, the way to go about dealing with people. When that has been dumbed down and the masses sees that, then the masses addresses it too from a dummy perspective. And we, celebrating that type of engagement, that type of communication. And it's that we're just at an inflection point, especially for those of us who have kids and grandkids and know, and part of your legacy is in them and what they see and understand and how they move. Now's the time to take what we're doing on a deeper level and make sure that we're passing down something that's more than fluff. And we are passing down something to the next generation that's more than fluff. And so much that we can talk about. It is now just about 9:00. I want to take a second, open up the call to anybody who have any questions, comments, want to dive in on any of these topics in more detail, or have any additional questions. But this is, especially as we get ready to go into our 90-day goal setting challenge, I'm thankful that we've had this conversation on exponential growth. Because when we approach next June and we show up for our call next month, and we launch and start the 90-day goal setting challenge, that our thought process on the topic will be more advanced, and that we are really combining the objective of profit and passion, and making that. And I think maybe we just outline what what the theme of the 90-day goal setting challenge should be for this day and time that we're in, that we should theme it as profits and passion. Because the truth is, we need both. We need to advance far past the poverty mentality. And the only way you can do it is if you're focused on profits. You can't be focused on just paying bills. Bill paying will not create wealth. We have to gain a profit mindset. And there are things to do and ways to approach profits and the objective of it in a way that can take it to the next level. And if you're adding in your passions in this life, what you truly believe that you are here to do in this life, why God created you, and the work and impact that you're trying to make and leave, and you combine the two, I think that, just from my perspective, is the beginning of what we really mean by serious people creating real impactful resources. And so that in and of itself, I think, is exciting enough for anybody to say, okay, let me hang up this call and get to work. Let's get started. Now is the time. There's no better time than today. Now is the time to take that idea, those passions, those ideas, the things that you're doing well today. How do we increase the cash flow associated with the things that you're doing right now? That's already a good thing, but how do we increase it and take it to another level? So let's open the call. Anybody have any questions, comments before we finish up for the day? All right. Well, let's say this. I want everybody to go to dreammakersnetwork.org, dreammakersnetwork.org, to just get started, to connect, say, okay, what do we have here? We have our mastermind calls, all these calls from years in the past. You can go there, click on any one of them, and learn more about just information and topics, and hear from folks who have addressed some things that may be lined up with what you're working on. We have our partner page where you can see some of our partners in finance and legal services, and just across the board, and corporate business services that can help get things in motion to make sure that the entities, whether it be for-profit or nonprofit, are set up, and you can schedule time to call, have those conversations. You can link to my calendar if you want to schedule time just to talk through this in a bit more detail, and didn't get a chance to share on the call today, but want to prepare and want to just dust off some of those ideas, and you feel like this is a safe space to communicate, please go to the link and schedule time for consultation and just to kind of share. And so there's a host of things that we can do, and you can see some of the videos of things that we've done over the years, and just to kind of gain and partner with the intentionality and the efforts and other folks who you may even see yourself in some of these past events that we've done. But connect with the network, dreammakersnetwork.org. Let's get started, man. This is I'm excited. You may be able to tell, like, this is an important time, and I'm just excited to connect with people who take these types of opportunities seriously to go to the next level. All right, folks, have a great month. I'm excited about, as we prepare for the 90-day goal setting challenge, to hear from you and connect. So many cool things that we're working on. We can just take to the next level. And we'll see you next week or next month. All right. Have a great month, a great weekend, and we'll see you soon.
This session is no longer being recorded.